Shalom and welcome to this week's installation of a Bisselle Torah, a little bit of Torah, and we begin a brand new book this week, the fourth book of the Bible, the fourth book of the Chumash. It is called Bamidbar, in the wilderness. And that's exactly what it is. It's all about the sojourn of the Jewish people, Bnei Israel, in the wilderness. And it's that I'd like to pay particular attention to for a few moments with you. What does the wilderness mean? The wilderness, don't think of something with a lot of trees and huge mountains and valleys, dips. No. The other word for wilderness in this context is actually better translated as desert. These are the wanderings of the Jewish people for 40 years in the Midbar, in the desert. And there are two meanings to this idea of a Bamidbar, of a desert. One of them is that, well, it was precisely that. It was sand and rock where little grew, and the nocturnal animals come out at night in order to feed and otherwise be baked by the sun, and they would not survive during the day. And so we, too, wandered through the wilderness looking for sustenance and always getting it from God, because God fed us for 40 years with something called man. In English, we called it manna, which was a gift from heaven, a gift from God, because otherwise we would not have been able to survive all of those generations in the wilderness without God's help. But there's another more particular aspect to this that I want you to think about. A midbar is also a state of mind. It's also a state of being. It's a desert where we can't call upon our natural resources in order to find the things that we need in order to sustain us. And everybody goes through a midbar. Some people, in fact, perhaps most people, go through many midbars in their lifetime. It's a midbar where somebody has left us. There's a death that has occurred. And with this sudden vacuum in our life, we feel as if we're lost. We're in a desert where there is no water, there's no sustenance, where there's no meaning. Other times, when we feel like we've lost our direction in life, when we feel like we don't really know which way to go. Nobody's there to tell us, to be able to steer us. And even if they were, maybe they'd have the wrong advice, and we feel yet in a midbar. There's sometimes a darkness overwhelms us. There, too, we are in a midbar. And some people would argue that we're in a midbar most of our lives. We're wandering aimlessly from place to place until we find where our true place is. So the story of the Midbar, it really has two powerful connotations to it, perhaps one more powerful than the other. The first, perhaps less powerful of them, is that they were wandering in the desert and God sustained them, which in of itself is magnificent enough to warrant a great deal of attention and thought. But the other one, the fact that we also wander in a desert of our lifetime, looking for meaning, looking for the reason of our being, why we were birthed into this world, and what our gifts are to this world. And until we attain an understanding of what those gifts are that we're supposed to bring into the world, we are remaining in the midbar, which could be 40 years in the wilderness. It could be 40 years of our life as we experiment with different things. As the book of Ecclesiastes points out, that we point to many different aspects of our life that we think are absolutely critical to our being when they're meaningless. And we discover as we age what is important, what is valuable versus values. And maybe this is the most critical aspect as we crack open this fourth book of the Bible, Bamidbar. And I'll stop with just a few questions which I urge you to ponder. Have you discovered why you are here in this world? If your being is purposeful, what then is its purpose? Have you found the joy that lasts not just for a single moment, but the joy that comes out of doing the right thing? And the third and final question I'd like to ask is, have you been able to open up the pages of your own people's past, your Jewish heritage, and discover you in those pages? It is why it's so valuable to study Torah. It's why we do this Bisselle Torah every week too, to get a little fraction, a segment, a question that will urge us to find the answer. And until we find the answer, we remain Bamidbar in the desert. Shabbat Shalom.